Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07 and it's Friday, the 18th day of December. Thanks for tuning in to the 19th day of December. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. There's no truth to the rumor that the board of directors of the radio station has voted to rename this show the O'Connor, Trump and Company. That's not
Trump
happening.
Well, it would have to be Trump, O'Connor and Company, right?
Probably, but that's not it. No, well, Kennedy Trump Center is still. Kennedy still gets the
it's
top
Kennedy
billing.
Trump. Okay,
isn't it?
I thought it's Trump Kennedy.
Is it Trump Kennedy Center?
I think it's Trump Kennedy. Yeah,
maybe it is. All right, Trump O'Connor and Company. Yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yep. It's Trump Kennedy.
All right. Well, Trump O'Connor and Company. That's a rumor. It's not true, as far as we know. He's going to have to actually show up and co-host a few times if he wants that. Meanwhile, at 6:05, we're going to speak with Sean Kennedy, or is it Sean Trump Kennedy? Oh, so confusing. Sean Kennedy, Virginians for Safe Community, 705 Paul Larkin Heritage Foundation, 735 Dan Yampieri, running for Frederick County Council, 805 Roma Daravi. She's a spokesperson for the Trump Kennedy Center. We'll talk to her. It says in my show notes here that it's the Kennedy Center, but we know that it's not. It's the Trump Kennedy Center.
Trump Kennedy Center, yes.
Trump Kennedy Center. Here's the thing, why I keep saying it, because I know how angry it makes certain people to hear it, so I'm just going to keep saying it. 835, Seamus Bruner, talk about Congress banning stock trading. So it's a busy morning ahead of us. I'm glad we've got Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody.
Or is it Patrice Trump Onwuka?
No, I'm not part of the Trump family. I mean, they want to adopt me. I'm open. I'm open to the idea.
Yesterday, the board at the Kennedy Center voted to rename that Performing Arts Center in Washington, D.C., the Trump Kennedy Center, and people are losing their minds over it. It's actually incredibly entertaining to watch. And first of all, nobody has noticed that if a new president comes in and doesn't like it, he can do exactly what Trump did, which is change the makeup of the board and have them vote for it, and they can take Trump's name off of it. Why do they go 0 to 1,000 on things like this?
Well, because they didn't think of it first. That is what upsets them. They did not think of it, that when they had power, they never thought about these ideas of trying to leave a lasting mark across the entire city by changing names. Better believe they would now. You don't think Barack Obama wouldn't want to have done that in the past?
I'm sure he wanted to. And by the way, if he had changed Reagan Airport to Obama Airport, yes, I would have complained about it. Although I do think, unlike this, I do think that would take it. Act of Congress. I'm not sure. Here's the thing: if you watch like Morning Joe right now, or any MS Now show or something, they still call the Secretary of War Secretary of Defense. Yeah. They still call it the Defense Department and not the War Department. Which, again, they may not like Trump changing the name, but do you want to be accurate and factual when relaying the news to your audience? You may not like the facts, you may not like the news, but the news is that it's now called the Department of War, but they refuse to acknowledge reality, which I think is hilarious. And this is why Trump does stuff like this, because he knows that it drives them insane.
Off.
Yes.
I'm reading a post here from Maria Shriver. She's one of those who's been set off on X. She said, "It's beyond comprehension that the sitting president has sought to rename the great memorial dedicated to President Kennedy. It's beyond wild that he would think of adding his name in front of Kennedy's name is acceptable. It is not. We cannot see what is happening here. Come on, my fellow Americans, wake up. This is not funny."
Yeah.
So she's blowing her gasket.
Ambassador Rick Grinnell, the president of the Kennedy Center, responded to Maria Shriver's unhinged rant on X and said simply, "The place was literally falling apart and you didn't help at all. Where have you been, Maria? You were completely silent while the building crumbled. Donald Trump had to come in and save it because you didn't help. You should thank him." And listen, for those of you who are don't like this, or you think that it's unseemly or what have you. Listen, I get it. You have institutions and you want the institutions to keep the certain names, and the Kennedy Center is the Kennedy Center and all that jazz. It's fine. Listen, I still call Capital One Arena the Capitol Center. I still call, I still call Northwest Stadium FedEx. Okay, I still call the Commanders the Redskins. I get it. But
it's.
What?
Well, it's similar to when I went down to Florida and was in Tampa, and the captain of the boat, the tourist boat, said, "Yeah, we were at the Gulf of Mexico, not the Gulf." I shouted out Gulf of America, and he's like, "Oh, we've got one of those."
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So that's fine. But here's if you're quarreling with why this was done, any objective observer has got to recognize that Trump's revitalization of the Trump Kennedy Center and his focus on raising money to rehabilitate the building and the structure and to breathe new life into the programming has been palpable. And it's funny, in the world of nonprofit theater, when somebody comes in and is able to engineer hundreds of billions of dollars of new money, I think I'm overstating the case. Hundreds of millions, certainly, and I think close to $1 billion of new money into a performing arts center. Guess what? They throw their name on the building. That's what they do in that world. That's what happens in nonprofit theaters. It'll never not be funny that one of the main performing arts buildings up at the Lincoln Center in New York City, home of the rich left-wing elites, when they go see the symphony, they're going into Koch Hall, named after one of the Koch brothers.
Oh, Koch, yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh. They just never mention that in the unless it's specific. I mean, listen, Larry, I have nothing against this. You make a very compelling case talking about how President Trump has revitalized the Kennedy Center. And for all those who are wringing their hands, they're the same people wringing their hands over adding a ballroom to the White House.
Right.
I think we will see President Trump leave an indelible mark across Washington, D.C. by the time he has left office in 3 years from now. And I'm here for it. And we'll see what happens, what sticks around. But you can't deny that President Trump is trying to, one of the things he said is bring Washington, D.C. back, and that includes all of the establishments.
The first time a Democrat wins the presidency, they will reconstitute the board at the Trump Kennedy Center, and they will rename it, and it will be over. Or at that point, it'll become such a sort of institutional name that they won't change it. That's, fine. Do what you will. Either way, it was a monumental day yesterday in major decisions and major events. The Trump Kennedy Center, just one of them, but we like talking about it because it tweaks people. Real quickly, though, if anyone is concerned about the memorial, Maria Shriver just said they've renamed the memorial for my uncle, John F. Kennedy, and they've renamed it now after Trump. The memorial is untouched. Tim Shriver also said this. Is he Maria Shriver's brother, I believe? Said the board isn't aware that the Kennedy Center is the memorial to the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. He likened it to renaming the Lincoln Memorial or the Jefferson Memorial. That's not true. Rick Grinnell said the decision doesn't impact the memorial. The memorial is separate from the performing arts venue. Rick Grinnell said to Tim Shriver, perhaps you should have been helping raise money for the center over the last years. It was in complete disrepair. Your president stepped in and saved it. You should thank him for saving the memorial. So the Trump Kennedy Center is the performing arts venue, but the Kennedy Memorial is still there and will remain. We'll talk to Roma Daravi. She, again, is the spokesperson for the Trump Kennedy Center, and she'll join us at 8:05. Right now it's 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
As you heard at the top of the news at 5 a.m., the suspect in the Brown shooting has been identified. The authorities have now linked directly the Brown University shooting with the murder of that MIT professor in Massachusetts.
Yes.
They had denied there was any link, but then they eventually did link it. And the alleged murderer, has been discovered. His body, he killed himself in a storage container. So we're going to give you a lot of details and statements from all of those authorities that gave press conferences late into the evening there, but it appears as though now we have identified that murderer. Also, huge day yesterday with changes in how the federal government will deal with the gender transition and sexual transition.
Very positive changes.
Of children, incredible changes from RFK as well as other public health authorities in the federal government. No more transing of kids is the bottom line. We'll give you all of those details coming up. It was a very big day yesterday.
It was a busy day.
A lot of news. But we do want to wrap up this conversation about the renaming of the Kennedy Center because, well, it's our local performing arts center. It's kind of a big deal. It's iconic. We've focused quite a bit on it here all year long as it's been a pretty major story. And let's hear from the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who is absolutely apoplectic over this, which, by the way, is the point. It's why Trump does stuff like this. And Hakeem Jeffries believes that he can't do this. This has to be an act of Congress. Well, maybe. Let's see. Here's what the leader said.
The so-called Kennedy Center board wants to rename the Kennedy Center after Donald Trump. Are you kidding me? Like, how does that help deal with the affordability crisis in this country? These people are pathetic. They are sycophants. And these are individuals right now who are bending the knee to a loser. The Republicans are losers. Why are you bending the knee at this point in time? It's not clear to you that, as Michael Ray Richardson, the great former New York Knick, once said, the ship be sinking? It's over. This is the Titanic. I don't get it. I really don't understand the situation.
No, he doesn't understand the situation. That was kind of pathetic, wasn't it? Although he would have been more effective if he had put on that sombrero and the Frito Bandito mustache that he likes to wear when he makes statements. Yeah.
I mean, he's so weak-kneed, so weak, so pathetic. I mean, it's kind of sad, and he's so reactionary, and he can't even muster up some energy, some enthusiasm to try to take down, to provide some criticism here. But that's his leadership. I mean, it's not surprising.
From the other side of the aisle and the other side of the building at the Capitol, the majority leader in the Senate, John Thune, was asked about it. He had a sit-down with Brett Baer, and it seemed like he didn't really have a lot of details about this rename, but Brett wanted to ask him about it.
The Kennedy Center Board voted today to rename the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. Is that going to fly up here?
I just heard about it, and so obviously we are just starting to process that announcement. They've asked me, aren't you on that board? And I'm like, well, I'm a non-voting. I'm an honorary member. I'm not a voting member of that board. So we'll take a look at it for sure and see where that goes. But obviously the president is heavily invested in trying to make some of these monuments around Washington, D.C., make this a better place to live and to work and to raise your families. And I think we've seen the effects of that, the results of that when it comes to the safety on our streets here in Washington, D.C. Now, I don't live here. I live in South Dakota, but I do work here. And I feel a lot more confident, as I think most people who work and move around here do, since the president's taken the steps that have tried to secure our streets.
But the pushback, I mean, it's not just Democrats. There'll be some Republicans that say these are historic monuments that need to be named this thing that they were named.
Right.
Otherwise, we're going to go back and forth, president to president, changing names of monuments.
Yeah, and we'll look at, because it's such a new announcement, I'm not familiar with the process of how this is done. There's a question of whether or not it's in law, is it statutory, do we have to change the law to do these sorts of things? And I'm sure we'll get all the answers to that in due time.
Yeah, okay, so I think that you're reading if you read into what Rick Grinnell, the president of the Kennedy Center, has been saying, the Trump Kennedy Center, this does not affect the memorial. The memorial for John F. Kennedy, which is contained within the Trump Kennedy Center, has been, that was determined by the Congress, and that continues to be called the John F. Kennedy Memorial. But that's not the Kennedy Center or the Trump Kennedy Center, and that's why Rick Grinnell has been saying what he's been saying. Like I said, we're going to have the spokesperson. But I got to just pause for a moment here, Patrice, and just throw this out, because I have a feeling you might like to talk about this. You heard what Brett Baer said there. There's going to be pushback. There's going to be people who are going to say these are historic monuments that need to be named the thing that they were named. How many statues and were torn down in the BLM George Floyd activist years of 2020, 2021. How many buildings on college campuses had names taken off of them? How many military forts and bases had to be renamed because the names that were on them, were linked back to military leaders from the Confederacy? So the same people who are going to scream, "It's the Kennedy Center and you can't take his name off the building," were the ones who took names off buildings for their own righteous political cause. It's rich with irony.
Oh, isn't it that how? But that's how it works. It's fine when the other side does it. It's a problem when President Trump does it. I mean, let's be realistic here. Conservatives are not the ones who usually want to rename anything. They're willing just to take and accept whatever is the status quo. And so, I mean, it's obviously we're seeing their hypocrisy. But there would be zero outrage if the Kennedy Center board decided to call it the Obama Kennedy Center or the Kennedy Obama Center. So it just, I mean, expose how hypocritical they really are on this issue. And it's going to be a non-issue. Honestly, it's not going to be something that lasts beyond Christmas Eve. Frankly, this news story.
I just love that Democrats suddenly are so sacrosanct about these names that it's always been named Kennedy Center. We should never change the name of the Kennedy Center, when they love to change the names of these things all the freaking time. By the way, while we're changing names, honestly, President Trump and people who are in the Trump administration could we please do away with the name Woodrow Wilson on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. Woodrow Wilson was an odious Klansman. He wasn't a Klansman, but he was Klan adjacent, let's say. He was cozy with the Klan, all right? And he was a terrible president. We should not have a bridge named after him. What really bothers all of these Democrats is they're realizing now that in certain areas of this country, over the course of the next 2 decades, you're going to see a ton of elementary schools and junior highs and high schools all named after President Trump. Trump Middle School, Trump High School, the Trump Chargers, the Trump Warriors. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to leave an indelible mark. And I thought about it from the perspective of just Washington, D.C. But, I love the idea of hearing elementary schools across this country renamed. We go through these renaming exercises all the time. And maybe there'll be, a bunch of new Trump named monuments and schools and establishments. And then there'll be some other political figure 30, 40 years from now, and everybody will be caught up and decide, okay, well, let's rename them again. I mean, it's an interesting and fun exercise to watch, but it also, forces us to say, okay, what's most important? And the name of a building, I think it's not going to hold me back. And that's why I hated BLM and all these folks trying to rename buildings because they thought that somehow a slave-owning, founder or something like that was going to have an impression on the life of a young person today. No, it's actually the policies that matter more, that it's going on with young people, not the name of the building.
Oh, your kid goes to Wilson? Oh, my kid goes to Trump. It's great.
Okay, if you thought the renaming of the Kennedy Center is going to make liberals lose their mind, just wait and see what the Trump administration did about surgeries for trans kids. Stay with us. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. Coming up at 6:05, we'll talk to Sean Kennedy about this latest killer in Fairfax who was in the country illegally and could have been deported, but Fairfax County knows better, apparently. And now we've got more dead people. 7:05, Paul Larkin, Heritage on Trump reclassifying pot. 7:35, Dan Yampieri. I'm going to get that right. Frederick County Council candidate. 8:05, Roma Duravi about the Trump Kennedy Center rename. And then at 8:35, Seamus Bruner talk about the stock trading bill in Congress. Nancy Pelosi, very sad about that. Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. You're grooving it there for Christmas. Go, girl.
Well, this music, this is the kind of Christmas music that I would play alongside the carols. Just a little bit of R&B Christmas. I love it. Happy Friday, everybody. 'Tis the last Friday before Christmas.
Look at you with your tis. Thank you for that. We had a fascinating day yesterday. If for those of you who are concerned about protecting children from medical procedures that would damage them for life for no good reason, it has to do, of course, with the idea of transing kids. And by the way, let's start with Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill that passed the House. The bill would criminalize these surgeries for minors nationwide. And it did get approval. 4 Republicans voted against it, but some Democrats actually voted for, didn't they? Or did they? Let me see. I'm trying to get the final number here. If they lose 4 Republicans, they must have had at least 1 or 2 Democrats on board. Yeah. By the way, let's just be clear here. You hear from the left all the time, and Democrats, no one's talking about transing kids. Well, yeah, you're not talking about it because you don't want people to know about it, but it's happening.
Exactly.
And of course we're against that. Well, you had a chance to vote to criminalize these procedures and you wouldn't do it. And of course they suddenly stand on the idea that, well, this really should be left in the hands of doctors. They love things to be left in the hands of doctors when it's also procedures that they raise money off of. The abortion should really be left in the hands of the mother and the doctors. I love that Dad never has anything to say about it. Or transing kids, it should really be left in the hands of doctors and these children's parents. Well, if you truly believe, as I do, that these procedures are unnecessarily and irreparably damage and physically abuse children, then even if a parent wants it to happen at the advice of a doctor or not, you shouldn't allow it to happen. Children can't stand for themselves. Exactly. That's where the government's supposed to come in and protect children. So anyway, the bill did pass. We'll see what happens at the Senate level.
Yeah, 3 Democrats I'm reading here voted for it. Vincenzo Gonzalez, Don Davis in North Carolina, and Henry Cuellar in Texas.
And Maria Gluesenkamp-Perez, I think it was 4.
Okay.
Or at least this is the Do No Harm Medicaid Act. I don't know if that is the same bill that we're talking about. I believe it is. So there you go. That had to do with Medicaid dollars going to kids' trans surgeries. Excuse me. That might be a separate bill. But both of those bills have made their way now through the House. We'll see what this – yeah, those are 2 separate bills. I apologize. And we shall see what happens in the Senate side. Beyond that, though, the Department of Homeland – excuse me, I always do that. The Department of Health and Human Services had some major announcements made from the executive level. Let's start with the NIH Director, Jay Bhattacharya. Cut 3, please.
Don't ever let, if you're a parent, don't ever let a doctor tell you, essentially blackmail you into thinking that you must accede to a transition for your child, because if you don't, the child will kill themselves. There's no warrant for that. The scientific evidence does not support that, and we should never, and I'm proud to be part of an administration that is putting an end to that practice.
Amen. They always call this gender-affirming surgery, which, again, the language is always the first casualty in these sorts of things. What these procedures do is deny gender. It's gender-denying surgery, not gender-affirming surgery, because you are utilizing pharmaceuticals to chemically change a perfectly healthy biological organism that has been created as either male or female to fool the brain and fool parts of the body into thinking that it is the opposite of female and male. That's gender denying. And then when you go into the barbaric kinds of procedures that involve scalpels and the removal of perfectly healthy tissue, it goes well beyond just denying. It actually is transformational, and it is horrendous. The Assistant Secretary of Health, Brian Christine, cut 4.
Hello, I am Admiral Brian Christine, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services. Today, we are taking decisive action to protect America's children from chemical and surgical mutilation and restore evidence-based medicine and gold standard science to the forefront of federal health policy. What we found in our gender dysphoria report was alarming. From 2016 to 2019, the number of sex-rejecting procedures performed on children tripled, And despite mounting evidence of harm and reversals by European countries, the previous administration and my predecessor were driven by a warped ideology and a radical political agenda.
Yeah, pause there for a second. Let's remind you that his predecessor was Richard Levine, who goes by Rachel Levine.
Uh-huh.
His
So
predecessor
a trans
was actually
person.
Exactly. But one of the people who actually is caught up in all of this mania. All right, do we have more? Yes, let's hear a little bit more from the Assistant Secretary of Health.
Ideology and a radical political agenda. And that is why I am signing this public health message to ensure healthcare providers understand their responsibility to put children's health and safety first. As medical professionals, we have an ethical obligation to provide excellent care to our patients, informed by the very best evidence that we have. As such, we should refuse interventions that pose risks of harm because our first mission is to do no harm. For the safety of our children, medical professionals should refuse to provide puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgical intervention.
So, Patrice, I know that you and our colleague Julie Gunlock and Carrie Lucas and the whole team at Independent Women, you have been leading the charge on this for many, many years. This must be really satisfying to see.
It is. We put out a statement yesterday and really just highlighting the fact that we've been sounding the alarm for many years about how these hormones, these procedures, these puberty blockers have been forced on young people with zero long-term evidence. You know, really this medicalization of children who are probably going through crises, or some of them just going through natural developmental questions about their bodies. And now them and their parents making lasting decisions, based on the guidance of medical, quote, professionals who are nudging them in this direction. And now now we tell the stories of these detransitioners, young women who, change their bodies surgically, chemically, and are living with the long-term impacts of them. I mean, the sexual dysfunction, the changes in even their voices that have been permanent. Some of them after being told that these were temporary or these were reversible, and finding out the truth, there's a satisfaction in seeing this administration unwind so much damage that's been done. But let's be realistic here. So many kids have made decisions based on the guidance of these health professionals, pediatricians, the pediatric associations who've co-signed this gender nonsense to the detriment of little children. And we're going to have a generation of people who end up living the rest of their lives having made these devastating decisions. But at least going forward, and this is why the congressional piece that you started with, Larry, the medical bill, the bills in Congress are really important, so that the next administration, if God forbid it's a Democratic administration, doesn't come bringing these policies roaring back through their future HHS agencies or whatever else. I mean, what we hate to see is this become a ping pong ball, but I do hope that this is real transformation that takes place in the medical community where it needs to be.
Yeah, well, the Democrats running for president will have to answer the question, will you approve this? Will you go back and reverse this? Gavin Newsom, last week on a podcast, cut stick. You know what? Hold on to this. We got to get to traffic. But we'll remind you exactly what Democrats think of these issues and what we would do if we had a Democrat in the White House. They'd reverse all of it. We'll show you. They've said so. It's 5:45.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, AOC asked if she would defeat J.D. Vance in the presidential race.
I would stomp him.
9 a.m. on WMAL.
So the Department of Health and Human Services yesterday has stopped recommending and or approving and funding through their agencies the kinds of transgender or gender-denying, gender-rejecting procedures that we have been talking about for so long. And this, by the way, framed in science, because they have actually revived the understanding that there is a mental disorder called gender dysphoria that can be treated psychologically, and you do not affirm that disorder by radically altering a perfectly healthy human body. Here is what Gavin Newsom just last week said on a podcast about this.
We didn't get into trans sports. That's an issue no one wants to hear about because 80% of the people listening disagree with my position on this. But it comes from my heart, not just my head. It wasn't a political evolution. It was position being that I don't think it's. I want to see trans kids. I have a trans godson. There's no governor that's signed more pro-trans legislation than I have, and no one has been a stronger advocate for the LGBTQ community.
I want to see more trans kids, and no one's been more.
I have a trans godson, so that's supposed to make him an ally. Is that what that means?
Yeah, and I've been the most pro-trans governor. There you go. And let's not forget what Joe Biden, President Trump's predecessor, said when he was in charge of these agencies when asked about an 8-year-old.
The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be zero discrimination. And what's happening is too many transgender women of color are being murdered. They're being murdered.
Okay.
This is so it goes from an 8-year-old kid to a LGBT trans black man pretending to be a woman being killed. I mean, right. Both of these are ridiculous scenarios and extremes. And if we were to actually parse out the specific scenarios that former President Biden is talking about, you will find that it's a very small, minute, at least on the adult side, very small population who are probably being killed for other reasons than just what they're presenting as. And for little kids, my 8-year-old couldn't even decide what shoes to wear on a given day between two sneakers. You're going to let him decide how to live the rest of his life as though he's having I mean, listen, there are kids who have hard times in life, and their choice to be a boy or a girl is not the hard time. They're kids who are actually dealing with physical abuse, actually dealing with sexual abuse from an adult that they should trust. Putting them in, letting 8-year-olds decide something like this is a totally different scenario and should not be equated.
Of course not. But Joe Biden's first instinct is to go to an 8-year-old child and say, it's not like 8-year-olds come up with this on their own. They are who they are, so you should go ahead and affirm, which is someone who's never been around an 8-year-old, or, well, I don't even want to talk about it. And then second, but I do love that the next instinct is, but you know what the real problem is black transgender women. It's like he's like trying to check every box possible.
Exactly. That's exactly. And that's who's gotten to him. It's that small demographic. Exactly.
It's 5:53.